Welcome to our virtual law legal analysis series. In today's episode, we will discuss the meaning, application and sample case of Dangerous Tendency Doctrine. Let's dive right into it. The Dangerous Tendency Doctrine is a legal principle that allows the government to restrict speech that has a tendency to cause harm, even if the speech does not directly advocate for that harm. The doctrine is based on the idea that the government has a right to protect its citizens from harm, and that speech that has a tendency to cause harm can be considered a form of harm itself. The doctrine was first adopted by the Supreme Court of the Philippines in the case of Gonzales v. COMELEC, 1969, and it has been applied in a number of subsequent cases. Application. The Dangerous Tendency Doctrine is based on the idea that the government has a legitimate interest in protecting its citizens from harm. This interest can be outweighed by the right to freedom of speech, but only if the speech has a clear and present danger of causing that harm. The following are the elements of the Dangerous Tendency Doctrine. The speech must have a tendency to cause harm. The harm must be serious and imminent. The government must have a legitimate interest in preventing the harm. The restriction on speech must be narrowly tailored to achieve the government's interest. Sample case. One case in which the Dangerous Tendency Doctrine was applied is People v. Vera, 1957, the Supreme Court upheld the conviction of a man for inciting to sedition. The court found that the man's speech had a tendency to create a dangerous tendency to overthrow the government. The Dangerous Tendency Doctrine has been criticized by some as being too broad and vague. Critics argue that the doctrine allows the government to restrict speech too easily, even if the speech does not pose a real and imminent threat to public order. However, the doctrine has also been defended by others as a necessary tool for the government to protect its citizens from harm. The Dangerous Tendency Doctrine is still a valid legal principle in the Philippines. However, the Supreme Court has held that the doctrine must be applied in a narrow and limited way. The court has ruled that the government can only restrict speech that has a clear and present danger of causing harm. This means that the government cannot restrict speech simply because it has a potential to cause harm. The harm must be imminent and likely to occur. The Dangerous Tendency Doctrine is a complex legal principle that has been the subject of much debate. It is important to remember that the doctrine is not absolute, and that the government can only restrict speech that meets the strict standards set by the Supreme Court. That's all for this episode. What do you think about the topic? Feel free to comment and suggest what topic you want us to discuss on the next video. Stay tuned for more legal insights in our future episode. Remember, understanding the law helps us comprehend the intricacies of our legal system. See you next time. Like and subscribe.